The Thistle and Crown Inn is packed. It's a late August evening in 1773. The air in this Wapping tavern is thick with smoke and the smell of cheap ale. Over in a corner booth, a husband and wife are bickering. It starts small, just a petty argument over buying and sharing their food. But then, the wife stands up. She walks away from the table and over to an adjacent booth. She picks up a sharp case knife, a blade she had just been using to cut meat. Without a single word of warning, she turns back. She walks right up to her husband, and in front of a tavern full of witnesses, she drives the blade straight into his throat. The blood pours out instantly. Within moments, he is dead on the floor. But this isn't just a story of a barroom murder. This is the dark, historical case of Elizabeth Herring, a woman trapped in a violently abusive marriage who snapped in the most public way possible. And because of the ruthless laws of 18th century England, her punishment would be completely unimaginable today. Before we break down the brutal crime and the terrifying sentence of petty treason, make sure to hit that subscribe button and leave a like if you want more deep dives into historical true crime. Let's get into it. To understand what happened inside that tavern, we have to pull back. We have to look at the harsh streets of London in 1773. Wapping was a rough, working-class maritime district. It was a place of sailors, dock workers, and hard-drinking locals. Life was cheap, and survival was hard. Elizabeth Herring lived here with her partner, Robert Herring. From the outside, they were just another struggling couple. But behind closed doors, their domestic life was a waking nightmare. Witnesses and neighbors would later admit that Robert was a monster. He was notoriously violently abusive toward Elizabeth. He didn't just hit her, he used weapons. Neighbors knew he frequently beat her with a heavy iron poker. He would even throw her out into the cold streets, almost entirely naked. Today we recognize this as severe domestic terror. We have laws, we have shelters. But in the 1700s, the legal system offered almost zero protection for battered women. Under English common law, a marriage was a strict hierarchy. The husband was the absolute ruler of his household. He had the legal right to physically correct his wife. The law essentially turned a blind eye to domestic violence, as long as it didn't immediately result in murder. Elizabeth was trapped. She had no money. She had no legal recourse. She was isolated in a home where she was being systematically beaten to a pulp. This brings us back to August 1773. Elizabeth and Robert decide to go out drinking at the Thistle and Crown Inn. Maybe it started as a normal night, but the tension between them was a powder keg. They started arguing. The fight was over something incredibly mundane, just the purchase and sharing of their food. But in an abusive relationship, minor arguments often trigger massive violence. Elizabeth walked away from the table. She went to sit in a nearby booth. She picked up a sharp case knife and started picking at a bone, trying to distance herself. We don't know exactly what Robert said to her. We don't know what look he gave her. But something inside Elizabeth finally broke. Years of beatings with an iron poker, all the humiliation, it boiled over in one single second. She stood up. She closed the distance between them, and without a sound, she struck. She plunged the case knife deeply into the right side of his neck. The witnesses in the tavern were completely paralyzed. One witness later testified that the blood immediately spouted out, like a butcher had killed a pig. Robert collapsed. The wound was deep, and it was instantly fatal. He died right there on the tavern floor. So, how did the 18th century justice system handle this? In a modern courtroom, a defense attorney would immediately bring up battered woman syndrome. They would present the years of horrific abuse. They would argue self-defense. or at least push for a manslaughter charge due to extreme emotional distress. But this was 1773. The investigation wasn't about understanding the psychology of the crime. It was about maintaining social order. There was no forensic mystery here. Dozens of people saw her do it. Elizabeth didn't even deny it. But the prosecution didn't charge her with standard murder. They charged her with something much worse: petty treason. You see, high treason was a crime against the king, but the law stated that a husband was the king of his family. For a wife to kill her husband, it was legally viewed as a traitorous rebellion against her master. It was a complete disruption of the natural patriarchal order. During her trial at the Old Bailey, the absolute fatal flaw of the justice system was exposed. Elizabeth's neighbors actually took the stand. They openly testified that Robert was a violently bad man. They confirmed the poker beatings. But the judges didn't care. To the 18th century court, past abuse did not justify a lethal response. Because Elizabeth couldn't prove that Robert was actively physically attacking her at the exact second she stabbed him, she had no legal defense. Her claim of being pushed to the brink meant nothing to a system designed to protect the authority of men. She was found completely guilty. Because her crime was petty treason, a standard hanging wasn't considered harsh enough. The punishment for a woman committing petty treason was deliberately terrifying. She was sentenced to be burned at the stake. On September 13, 1773, Elizabeth Herring was taken to the execution grounds. A massive, chaotic crowd of over 20,000 people showed up to watch the spectacle. The crowd was so huge that carriages overturned and people were actually crushed in the stampede. They placed Elizabeth on a stool. They tied a rope around her neck, attached to a post. The merciful protocol of the era was to strangle the condemned woman to death before the flames actually reached her. The stool was pulled away. After she was strangled, they lit the faggots. Her body was completely consumed by the raging fire. Elizabeth Herring's agonizing death is a dark stain on legal history, but her case and the sheer barbarity of burning women at the stake started to make the public deeply uncomfortable. While it didn't happen overnight, the horrifying spectacle of these executions eventually forced the British Parliament's hand. In 1790, the law was finally changed. The burning of women for petty treason was permanently abolished. The tragedy of Elizabeth Herring isn't just that she was a murderer, it's that society gave her absolutely no escape from a monster and then burned her to ashes when she finally fought back. What do you guys think? If this case happened today, with modern context, what do you think the verdict would be? Manslaughter? Self-defense? Or still murder? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss a deep dive into the dark past. Until next time, stay safe out there.